Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Outlaws and Gunslingers. We're on to another installment of America's favorite gangsters and outlaws and gunslingers and criminals and the popos themselves.
which are also
Criminals! Right. Which today we'll be covering. I know we said last week we'd be doing Melvin Purvis, but guess what? His story just is not that long or interesting. Spoiler alert, he killed himself in like 1960. So, yeah, he kills himself because, depressed cop.
they do.
Depressed cop, suicidal cop, all that good shit. But we will be, since we've done Prohibition and just finished up all of our Public Enemy era gangsters, we're going to go through the FBI from its formation up until the last of the so-called Public Enemy era gangsters being killed. So this is the FBI and this is their story. FBI was established in 1908 and designed to fight corruption and crime on a national level. However, when they were established, there were few federal laws or federal crimes. Yeah, there were few federal crimes, and the agency focused on violation of federal laws involving national banking, bankruptcy, naturalization, antitrust, and land fraud. And at that time, there was hardly any systematic way of enforcing the law across the now broad landscape of America. Well, that changed, however, when Prohibition enforcement began in 1920.
I think that's why they banned alcohol, because FBI was like, dude, we
need something to fucking do, Edgar.
Dude, how about we make
They're like,
national fucking...
They're like, J. Edgar Hoover, you'll never be president, but this could be... this could be... This could put you down in infamy for the rest of your life.
Right. When the FBI began, there were more than 100 cities with populations over 50,000. Where crime growing right along with.
Of course it would.
Right. Well, in these big cities, with their many overcrowded tenements filled with the poor and disillusioned, and with all the ethnic tensions of an increasingly immigrant nation stirred in for good measure, tempers often flared.
I mean, yeah.
Pissed off motherfuckers. Clashes between striking workers and their factory bosses were turning increasingly violent.
A lot of strikes and protests back in the
a lot
early 1900s. A lot of famous ones.
Seems like it was always
the famous
shit going on strike.
GM fucking sit down or walk out, whatever it was.
Even like the little factories, they were like, fuck this shit. Sick of it.
That was before all the unions and shit. But violence was just the tip of the criminal iceberg, so they say. Corruption was also rampant nationwide, especially in local politics. Yeah, well, that hasn't fucking changed, has it? Big business also had its share of sleaze, from the shoddy, even criminal conditions in meatpacking plants and factories to the illegal monopolies threatening to control entire industries. Dude, early 1900s was a fucked up time in America. Literally. They're just like figuring themselves out with this new technology boom and industrial boom and shit, and they're fucking like, what are we doing?
They need all kinds of fucking workers, but don't know how to fucking take care of them.
Right. They're still treating them like fucking
slaves.
dirt, right?
Ridiculous. During these early days, American cities and towns were also fast becoming breeding grounds for a future generation of professional lawbreakers. They're like, damn, we could break some laws in this town. Do you think they were in
professional?
A phone book? You think
Professional. They got like big ass ads. Professional lawbreaker. Operation for over 30 years.
Right. Fifth generation.
H.W. Hines.
In Brooklyn, a 9-year-old Al Capone would soon start his life of crime. In Indianapolis, a 5-year-old John Dillinger was growing up on his family farm. And in Chicago, a young child christened Lester Joseph Gillis would be born, who would later morph into, you guessed it, Babyface Nelson.
Babyface Nelson.
A vicious killer.
And we all know what happened to them because we've already had their stories.
Babyface Nelson killed more FBI agents than
any man.
Than Hillary Clinton?
Well, I don't know about that. She got him beat. Well, by the early 20s, World War I had ended and Prohibition had begun. The war to end all wars, quote unquote, was over, but a new one was just beginning on the streets of America itself. On one side was a rising tide of professional criminals made richer and bolder by Prohibition, which had turned the nation dry. In 1920.
So they say.
So they say.
Ridiculous. In one big city alone, Chicago, estimated 1,300 gangs had spread like a deadly virus by the mid-20s. And there was no easy cure. With wallets bursting from bootlegging profits, gangs outfitted themselves with Tommy guns. And operated with impunity by paying off politicians, police, and anybody with fucking power. It's ridiculous. Robber gangs led by the powerful L. Scarface Capone and the hot-headed George Bugs Morin turned the city streets, if I didn't say that last name right, turned the city streets into a virtual war zone with gangland clashes. By 1926, there were 12,000 murders were taking place yearly across America.
Shit.
12,000 muertes yearly.
How many murders are in America nowadays?
Oh, more than that. Has to be, right? Right. Chicago gets at least 12,000 a day.
Yearly murders in America. Let's see what the stat is here. 16,425 in 19. So that's not bad. From of 100 years, they've only increased by 6,000. While the population has increased more than that.
Right.
Huh. So I was actually expecting it to be about 20, 25.
Well, murders that we know of, there's probably another 10,000 that are missing.
Right. That's a whole nother rabbit hole.
That's a whole nother one. Missing persons. There's 87,000. 87,000 people active missing.
Over 600,000 individuals go missing in the United States every year.
Right.
And are quickly found alive.
Right. Exactly. There's 87,000 active missing cases in 2019 as of the 31st of December.
Over 90,000 people are missing in the U.S. at any given time.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, that's about right. I mean, maybe missing for, what, 8 hours?
I was going to say, right, like missing who's, geez, and you go down to pictures and they're all fucking kids.
Mm-hmm.
Holy fuck, dude. Look at the map of missing people reports. The South is like littered with it.
Littered.
But there's none in California. There's 2 in California.
Whatever.
The fuck out of here. The fuck out of here.
Michigan's fucking, damn it. The UP getting some missing children or missing people.
That's crazy.
Look at New York.
Florida.
Boom.
Do these states not have like missing people
There's no way.
databases? Because Florida and California have barely any.
There's no fucking way.
Right.
Women and children. If it's a guy missing, he's usually dead or ran off.
That's crazy. 90,000 people at any given time are missing in the USA.
Nuts.
Probably, I would assume, half of those end up dead.
Most likely.
Maybe about a quarter of which, I would assume.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Right.
We don't know.
Right. Well, on the other side was law enforcement to those gangsters, and which was outgunned and ill-prepared at this point in history to take on the surging national crime wave. Right, these guys could not handle any of these fucking guys. Dealing with the bootlegging and speakeasies was challenging enough, but the roaring 20s also saw bank robbery, kidnapping, auto theft, gambling, drug trafficking. They all became increasingly common crimes. More often than not, local police forces were hobbled by the lack of modern tools and training, and their jurisdiction stopped abruptly at their borders.
Yeah, because they're used to just everybody complying. A couple fucking idiots in town or whatever. A crime fucking spree just goes across the country.
Just a crime wave, and they're like, how do we do? What do we do?
We got 5 deputies, and there's a gang of 15 out there. We're fucked.
Let them have the town.
All right. I mean, even cities like Chicago and Detroit, I mean, their police department was decent, but not like that. In the young Bureau of Investigation, things were not much better. In the early 20s, the agency was no model of efficiency and had a growing reputation for politicized investigations, obviously.
Of course.
A good house cleaning was in store for the FBI. And it came at the hands of a young lawyer by the name of J. Edgar Hoover.
Not ever a future president.
Never. Or a vacuum. Hoover had...
Right. Or associated with the vacuum cleaner.
Right. Or
the other Hoover.
Or the
or Herbert,
Indiana guy.
Or Herbert Hoover.
They weren't Hoosiers. He was a Hoover.
They're not the Indiana Hoovers.
Hoovers. J. Edgar Hoover had joined the Department of Justice in 1917, quickly risen through the ranks. 1921, he was named Assistant Director of the Bureau. 3 years later, Attorney General Harlan Stone named him Director. You're no longer assistant.
Nope.
You need to find one.
You're the guy.
Right. However, Hoover. Jeez. Hoover would go on to serve nearly another half a century.
Damn, Hoover.
Another 50 years, this motherfucker, as director.
This dude's like, I don't need to be president. I'll be a director.
Of the FBI, I got more power.
Right. Pretty much. At the outset, the 29-year-old Hoover was determined to reform the Bureau quickly and thoroughly to make it a model of professionalism.
Right.
Well, he didn't do that because if you guys have heard any of our past stories, these last 5 at least, you can see this guy fucking sucked.
He did.
He did so by weeding out the political hacks and incompetence, laying down a strict code of conduct for agents, and instituting regular inspections of headquarters and field operations.
Nice.
He insisted on rigorous hiring criteria, including background checks, interviews, and physical tests for all special agent applicants.
Nice.
So the fucking normal shit that should have been done anyway.
All right, you dumb fuck.
And in January 1928, he launched the first formal training for incoming agents, a 2-month course of instruction and practical exercises in Washington. These guys didn't have to have fucking training prior to 1928. They're just like, hey,
nope.
I want to be an agent. They're like, hey, okay, here's your gun.
Here you go, bud.
Here's your gun and badge. Go out and fucking shoot somebody.
Yep.
Under Hoover's direction, new agents were also required to be 25 to 35 years old, preferably with experience in law or accounting.
I'm an accountant, but I'm going to be out there being an FBI agent.
Right. Well, FBI did do a lot of
They did a lot of
that kind of fraud shit. Yeah.
Bastards. When Hoover took over in 1924, the Bureau had about 650 employees, including 441 special agents.
Damn.
That's not very many, though, to cover a whole country.
Right.
In 5 years, with the rash of firings, he had just 339 special agents and less than 600 total employees.
Okay. Compared to now, how many do you think is in the FBI?
Now?
Yeah.
Say like fucking 20,000.
35,000 people. But not all of them are agents. They got somewhere between 13 and 14,000. They got 35,000 that are agents, support professionals, intelligence analysts, language specialists, scientists, information technology, all that shit. So about 15,000 agents, so that's not bad.
No, it's pretty damn good.
It's not bad at all.
I like it. But it was beginning to become the organized, professional, and effective force that Hoover envisioned.
Was it?
I don't think it was.
Professional, no. Organized, maybe a little. Effective, yes.
Yeah, it was effective.
They fucking murdered some people.
Fucking murdered.
What important step in that direction came during Hoover's first year at the helm when the Bureau was given the responsibility of consolidating the nation's 2 major collections of fingerprint files from the federal one at Leavenworth and its own set of state and local ones held in Chicago.
Okay.
Hoover also welcomed submissions from other jurisdictions and provide identification services to all law enforcement partners. Good for him. At least he's taking some steps to be like, hey guys, we need to get our shit fucking right.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe he does it after 1930s, but he's had a rough time in the 20s and 30s. That's for fucking true.
We have to figure that out.
Right.
This was a vital new tool for all the law enforcement and the first major building block in Hoover's growing quest to bring the discipline of science to the FBI and scientific services to law enforcement nationwide. Okay. Early wanted posters began to include fingerprints and all manners of details about criminal suspects on the run. And the Bureau was fast becoming a national hub for the criminal records.
Okay.
1936, the agency had a total reservoir of 100,000 fingerprints.
Jeez.
And by 1946, that number swelled to 100 million.
Damn, they got 100 million of you motherfuckers fingerprints.
Million. How many people
were in the United States in 1946?
Say 250.
1940, there was roughly 141 million people in America. They had 100 million of those had fingerprints on files.
How's that possible? I think they were fingerprinting all the boring and all that.
Yeah, but they do change.
All the boring.
Your fingerprints change. That's why they...
Your fingerprints never change.
Yes, they do. When you're growing, that's why they have to do fingerprints. If anything, they would... Somebody that's never been fingerprinted by the police station, they could go out and do a crime and they wouldn't have their fingerprints on record. Right. But, yeah. Do they do baby fingerprints? They only do
they just do the footprints, right.
140 million population and 100 million are... what is the other 40 million kids? Right?
To be, right? Or undocumented.
100 million fingerprints by 1946. Good for them.
Yeah.
While using fingerprints to catch the guilty and free the innocent was just the beginning. The lawlessness of 1920s got the nation's attention as several independent studies in May of 1929 confirmed that everyone seemed to know. The law enforcement at every level needed to modernize.
Hey.
They did, right?
They did.
They're still fucking packing gunpowder and shit.
Right. rolling cigarettes.
All right. Well, they still rolled cigarettes. Everybody rolled cigarettes in 1920s. When was the first pre-rolled cigarette introduced? I don't know. So yeah, because they obviously sold pre-rolls in packs that had no filters forever. Even in the Wild West times, they were doing that.
Probably.
So yeah. Oh, you said we needed to modernize and cigarettes. Yeah, I get it. In 1930, modern. That's one way they needed to modernize was, you guys should really start smoking pre-rolled cigarettes. Okay, a little out of date here. In 1930, the FBI began to collect national crime statistics that would enable authorities to understand trends and better focus resources. Another major development was made the next year when the Bureau's first technical laboratory took root. By 1932, the lab was fully operational and soon providing scientific examinations and analysis for the Bureau and its partners around the country.
Hey.
So now they got their own science lab, doing DNA testing. Nice. They're doing all this shit, dude.
Nice. These advances came just in time as the crime wave that began in the 1920s was about to reach its peak.
Sure was.
By the early 1930s, cities like St. Paul, Minnesota, had become virtual training grounds for young crooks.
Dude, I haven't heard that word. I haven't heard that word
since Richard Nixon.
So fucking long. Yeah,
while Hot Springs, Arkansas, had turned into a safe haven and even a vacation spot for the criminal underworld.
We've heard of Hot Springs. We need to do a fucking show about Hot Springs, dude.
Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Hey guys, our next story might be about Hot Springs. We haven't done a town in a long time, so cool.
I mean, what are you going to do, right?
Right. Well, now we get into the good part where they start bringing down all these fucking people.
These motherfuckers down.
Al Capone was locked away for good.
Forever.
In 1931, but this Chicago outfit carried on fine without him and would actually experience a resurgence in the coming decades.
They would.
The so-called five families of the New York Mafia, I can't wait till we get to there, were also emerging during this period with Lucky Luciano setting up the commission to reunite the mob and Murder Inc. to carry out its hits. Prohibition was repealed in 1933, but by then the Great Depression was in full force. And with honest jobs harder to come by than ever, the dishonest ones sometimes seemed more attractive than standing in soup lines.
Right,
yeah, if you can rob somebody and get a couple $100, you're going to fucking do that probably.
I would.
Right?
1933, an assortment of dangerous and criminally prolific gangsters were wreaking havoc across America, especially in the Midwest.
Is it wreaking?
Wreaking, it's all the same. And the Midwest was just getting hammered.
Right, yeah, the Midwest was fucking...
Right.
Just getting hammered.
Their names would soon be known far and wide. There was John Dillinger with his crooked smile.
Crook with a crooked smile.
Who managed to charm the press and much of America into believing he was nothing more than a harmless modern-day Robin Hood. But in reality, John Dillinger and his revolving crew of gunslingers, violent thugs like Homer Van Meter, Harry Pete Pierpont, and John Red Hamilton were shooting up banks across America's heartland.
Yes, sir.
Stealing thousands and thousands of dollars and murdering at least one policeman on the way. At least one.
Just one? Sorry, John Dillinger. That's not sounding too... You need to murder more. Right. There was also Clyde Barrow and his girlfriend Bonnie Parker, an inseparable love-struck couple who partnered at times with the Barrow brothers and others. Barrow brothers and others,
right,
who robbed and murdered their way across a half dozen or so states.
They fucking did. The ruthless,
did it.
Yeah, the ruthless, almost psychotic.
Yeah. Babyface
Nelson worked with everyone from Roger the Terrible, Touhy. Touhy. I
think it's Touhy.
He worked with Terrible Roger to El Capone, John Dillinger.
This motherfucker was like, we meet in the stars.
He was like fucking LeBron James going from fucking place to place.
Right. He's like, I'm taking my talents to Roger the Terrible.
Gonna do it. All right, he teamed up with John Paul Chase and Fatso Negri in his later days.
Okay.
Nelson was a callous killer who thought nothing of murdering lawmen, gunning down 3 Barrow agents in the span of 7 months. And there was the cunning Elvin Karpis and his Barker brothers sidekicks.
Who we have not heard from yet, but we will eventually.
Right. Who not only robbed banks and trains, but engineered 2 major kidnappings of rich Minnesota business executives.
Yes, sir.
In the year of 1933.
Elvin Karpis. Maybe we'll do him next. I don't know. We got some stuff to do now. Well, now we got Hot Springs and Elvin Karpis and the Barker gang. So, good. All these criminals would become public enemies. Pretty Boy Floyd was the 4th of the fifth 1930s Public Enemies. I believe Alvin Karpis was the last one. Well, all these criminals would become public enemies, actively hunted by law enforcement nationwide. At first, the Bureau was playing only a bit part in pursuing these gangsters since few of their crimes violated federal laws. That began to change in the 1932 Lindbergh kidnapping, which gave the Bureau jurisdiction in those cases for the first time. And with the Kansas City Massacre, which we covered last episode, in June of 1933, a bloody slaughter at a train station that claimed the lives of 4 lawmen, including Bureau agent with the rise to national prominence of John Dillinger.
John Dillinger became famous.
So all these criminals are popping up and getting nationwide attention. The FBI is like, we want in on this shit. We're the national motherfuckers.
Right. We want in on these motherfuckers. Using whatever federal laws it could to hang its hats on, the Bureau turned its full attention to catching these motherfucking gangsters.
They sure did.
I said, we're going to get these motherfucking gangsters.
We're going to get these motherfucking gangsters.
And despite some stumbles along the way, the success began to add up. By the end of 1934, most of these public enemies had been moited or captured. It's true.
Bonnie and Clyde were the first to fall in May of 1934 at the hands of Texas lawmen, with the Bureau playing a small supporting role in tracking them down. In July, Melvin Purvis and a team of agents caught up with John Dillinger, who was shot dead leaving a Chicago theater. Pretty Boy Floyd, one of the hired hands of the Kansas City Massacre, was killed in a shootout with Bureau agents and local law enforcement on an Ohio farm in October of 1934.
Terrible.
And Nelson died the following month after a bloody firefight with 2 special agents who were also killed. Death.
Damn. The FBI.
And go listen to episodes of Dillinger and
Nelson.
Pretty Boy Floyd and Nelson, because I believe all of them have conspiracies surrounding whether or not they were actually killed by
Just
the FBI, or in the case of Pretty Boy Floyd's killing, was he actually murdered in cold blood after he was incapacitated on the ground and they just murdered him cold blood, or what happened there?
They didn't want to deal with it.
So go listen to those shows to make your own opinion about those.
Right. The Bureau caught up with the rest soon enough. Agents arrested Doc Barker in January 1935, and the infamous Ma Barker and her son Fred were killed by Bureau agents in Florida 8 days later.
Okay.
Elvin Karpis, the brains of the gang, was captured in May of 1936 and ended up in Elkey. He was at the Rock.
He was at the Rock. Well, thanks to the successful battle against gangsters, the once unbeknown Bureau and its G-men, quote unquote, became household names and icons of popular culture in just a few years.
Yeah.
Along the way, Congress had given it newfound powers too, including the ability to carry guns. What?
Oh no, they couldn't carry guns before.
Ability to carry guns and make arrests.
Wow.
In July of 1935, as a capstone of its newfound identity, the organization was renamed the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. Yes, nice. It was the
BOI.
It was the Bureau of Investigation, and then there was another name for it, and then it was the FBI. So,
right.
In the early days, they weren't allowed to carry guns.
I guess not.
Wow,
some crazy shit. As the decade came to a close, the FBI would find itself shifting gears once again. War was brewing in Europe. Pro-Nazi groups were becoming more and more vocal in the United States, claiming fascism was the answer to American woes. The gangsters, it turned out, were just a prelude to the dark days to come.
Yes, they were, and we will cover all those dark days to come coming up. But we're still in the 30s, folks. We got Hot Springs, Arkansas. We got the Barkers. We got Alvin Karpis. Right. We got a bunch of other 30s gangsters to go through, but figured we might as well do something about the lawmen, which we've not really done. I mean, I guess since the Wild West, we've done a few on the lawmen, but they're always lawmen and then switch to fucking criminals and all that stuff. So, yeah. FBI Bureau investigation from its start all the way up to the where we are now, pretty much.
To the end.
And there's no reason to cover the FBI again.
Nope, never will.
I don't think there's another famous FBI agent.
I'm sure there is.
I don't think so.
I'm sure there is.
FBI agents famous. Anybody from today's time, do you think? I don't think there is. Oh, we do have FBI agents who infiltrated the mob, like Joe Pistone. Greatest in history, J. Edgar Hoover. Number 10, yeah, you should be there. Joe Pistone, this dude's still going around fucking doing, talking shit. Melvin Purvis, Charles Winstead, who
Was whatever.
Several high-profile cases in the 30s and 40s. The main claim to fame is being the agent most likely to have fired the shot that finally downed the notorious John Dillinger. Joaquin Jack Garcia, he was an even more successful mole. He infiltrated the Gambino crime family. He looks like a fucking...
All right.
Gonna
fuck somebody up.
He was in it for 26 years.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do some shit.
Born in Cuba in the early 50s, the imposing 6'4" Garza successfully played dozens of underworld roles in over 100 different operations, with many of his things being orchestrated simultaneously. The most prominent of his performances was Jack Falcone, a supposed Sicilian thief and drug dealer. Thanks to Garcia's impressive record, he's often referred to as the FBI's greatest undercover agent. I have never heard of this guy. Oh, yeah, dude, he looks like he murdered a fucking shit ton of people.
Sure hell did.
You know he did. Look at this fucking guy. Look at his eyebrows. George Pirro, he infiltrated he fucking interrogated Saddam Hussein. Good for him. He got all the information. Mark Felt, a.k.a. Deep Throat. Okay, yeah, the undercover guy that took down Dick Nixon. John O'Neill, main agent. He's one of the main agents charged with investigating Al-Qaeda and Osama in the years preceding the September 11th, including the USS Cole bombing. In a horrible twist of irony, he retired from the FBI to come head of security at the Twin Towers in New York City and was killed in the 9/11 attacks.
Damn.
America could clearly have done with more agents of his ilk. That is a terrible twist of irony. He investigated these guys and then they actually killed them.
They murdered him.
Right. Clyde Tolson was J. Edgar Hoover's closest friend and protege during his years.
Yeah.
And was, rumor has it, was his lover as well. What the fuck? J. Edgar?
All right.
What are you doing? He was a right-hand man, participating in the arrest of notorious public enemies like Alvin Karpis and Harry Burnett. Was constantly at the FBI's and blah, 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 blah. They took vacation together and buried a few yards from each other. All right. And Robert Lamprey, as this list number one agent in the history of FBI. During the 40s and 50s, is responsible for the capture of several Soviet spies involved in extracting military secrets. Well, that would be all fine and dandy if we did shows like that, but we don't do shows on the FBI.
We don't.
That are dealing with Soviet spies and shit. So we're not the Outlaws, Gunslingers, and Spies fucking show.
Right.
So, yeah, that's it for the FBI for this week's episode. We'll be back next week for most likely Alvin Karpis, since he's one of the last public enemies. That's going to be right before we move on to Hot Springs, Arkansas, and other notorious, and not even notorious. There's a couple probably you've never heard of that we still have to cover throughout these 30s. And that'll be all up in the coming weeks.
Months ahead.
Yeah. Months, weeks, years. I don't know, guys. If you guys interested in just shit talking and whatever, anything and everything, politics, sports, news, movies, music, we got the Bang and Dang Show wherever you get your podcast, the Bang and Dang Show, where we just talk fucking about anything and everything that's happening in today's world or whatever we feel like talking about. And then we also have the Monday Night Watch Along, where we went back to the very first episode of Nitro and watch the main events of Nitro and Raw every week and give them a score.
Yep.
According to how we like the match, the crowd reactions, and the extracurricular activities, meaning promos, beatdowns after the bell or anything like that. And then we give our own score and we decide who truly won the Monday Night War. We're in the middle. We're almost at the tail end of 1997 coming up here. And
coming to the best time ever.
We are, we're coming up to the pinnacle of professional wrestling. So that's the Monday Night War Chalong, wherever you get your podcast. And we'll be back next week for Alvin Karpis. We're the Mouthy Michiganders with
Bang Dang.